Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 309 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Lori. Lori is Michael and Logan's mom. As you may guess, Lori has gone through this child loss journey not once, but twice. The first time was more than 25 years ago when she lost her 2-year-old son, Michael. And the second happened just 18 months ago when she lost her youngest son, Logan. What is really interesting to me is that her grief journey, these two different times, is so vastly different from each other. So it shows that the same person can grieve very, very differently when they have different losses. So I know you will appreciate and learn so much from her. I also want to announce that today's episode is another sponsored episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Archie in honor of her son, Garrett. The anniversary of Garrett's death is today, August 14th, on the day of the release, so it seemed like a fitting time to dedicate an episode to him. So she did that by giving a donation of $125. So thank you again so much, Archie, for that donation. If you want to hear more about Garrett's story, Archie and her daughter Alina were on episode 105. So you can go to andysmom.com/105 and listen to that. Additionally, the two of them put out their own podcast, and that podcast is available right now just on Spotify, and that's called Yes, We're a Damn Mess. So listen to their story there, and thank you so much for honoring Garrett by donating to the podcast. Right now, just sit back and enjoy listening to Lori, Michael and Logan's mom. Thank you so much, Lori, for agreeing to come on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
I know I get to talk to you about two boys today, right? Two of your sons.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, is sad and horrible in and of itself. But in some ways, really nice to be able to talk about both of your boys in one kind of setting, right?
Yes, I love talking about them.
Uh-huh. All right. So why don't you just kind of go ahead and get started if that's okay?
Well, I married my high school sweetheart. And about 39 years ago, we met in 7th grade. And we had 4 boys. We had Thomas, and we call him TJ. He's 38.
Uh-huh.
And we had Michael next, and he would have been 33 today.
Today,
he would have been 33 years old.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah. And then we had Tyler, who is 29 today. And Logan.
They had the same birthday? Oh,
No.
29 today. Oh, okay.
He's 29 today.
Okay. I thought you meant their birthday was today.
No.
Okay. No.
And then Logan, who would have been 27.
Okay.
We live in Massachusetts, and we have lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have lived in Georgia and Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Oh.
And Michael, who was born June 8th, 1992, was my second child, and I had a normal pregnancy with him. He was a healthy, beautiful baby boy, and he was always happy, always smiling, and he loved binkies. He always had, I have pictures of him with a binky in each hand and 2 binkies in his mouth. he was just such a happy child. He also had this special puppy dog that he carried around, and he had this little tiny baby doll with a bald head. So he loved the doll. He loved pizza, donuts. But in the first week of January in 1994, he was really, really fussy. He just was not himself. Just was not himself. He was really, really fussy. I took him to the pediatrician,
and he was like a year and a half at this point?
Yeah.
Okay.
We could not figure anything out. And then one night I took him into the emergency room at the hospital. They did an x-ray of his belly, and they said, because they thought it was a bowel blockage.
Bowel obstruction. Yeah.
Couldn't find anything. Went home, still fussy. One morning, and it was a couple of visits to the pediatrician, a couple of visits to the hospital, could not find anything. One morning I went into his room and he had a bloody nose, and I called my pediatrician, and I went in, and my pediatrician looked at me and he said, I want you to go, we live in Massachusetts, I want you to go to Children's Hospital in Boston, and do not leave that hospital until they do an ultrasound of his belly.
Yeah.
So in Children's Hospital we go, and they did an ultrasound of his belly, and he was in a stroller. And the nurse came out and she said, let me take Michael. They need to talk to you. So my husband and I went into this room. I'll never forget it. Really long table with Kleenex boxes all down the table. And it was just my husband and I want to say 4 or 5 people. And they used the word neuroblastoma.
Yeah.
And I had never heard that. They said it was a rare form of cancer, childhood cancer. And I didn't hear anything, but he had 1% chance of survival. And it's stage 4. He had a size of a grapefruit tumor in his belly. I didn't hear anything after that. I just knew I just wanted to get up and go find him. I just wanted to find Michael. And so I went out to the hallway trying to find him, trying to, not be upset just for him, So I went out in the hallway, I found him, and he was in the stroller. The nurse was strolling him around the hallways, and I stayed strong. I didn't cry in front of him. I think I was in shock.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe what they were telling us. I had no idea that we were going to get that devastating news. Absolutely no idea. So he was, you would never know he was sick. He was all smiles. So we had to do 5 days in the hospital of chemo treatments. And then Fridays was our clinic days at the Dana-Farber. So every time we went in to the hospital, every time I was packing, he was so excited to go to the hospital. It was like his second home. He would get so excited to go there. And he was so happy to be able to, go there. Even through the treatments were horrible, some of the stuff they would do to him, it was just brutal. But he was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. And to be on that cancer ward, it was just, I thought it was going to be so depressing. And the kids there, the nurses, the parents, it was amazing. It was just, I don't know, it was amazing. But I never left him. I stayed with him. I never, ever left him. I slept in the crib with him.
Oh my.
Thank goodness the cribs are, big. But I slept with him. I never left his side. And my other son, TJ, was 7 at the time. And it was sad because he didn't have a mom. I was with, Michael the whole time. I never left him. So it was really sad that TJ didn't have a mom for 9 months. He was either with my parents or my mother-in-law, or my husband took the time off at work so he could be there for TJ in the hospital. He was going back and forth, So that was sad. But then I think he was going to go in for a transplant. He, they did the chemo treatments. I forget what date it was, but he ended up going in for the transplant. The night before the transplant, he was going in for a bone marrow transplant. They do it differently now for neuroblastoma, I guess. It's a totally different protocol.
Mm-hmm.
The night before he was going in for the transplant, we were in the hospital, and I noticed him walking down the hallway, and he was limping. So I said to one of the nurses, he's limping. You see he's limping. So she said, okay, we better do a bone scan. So they did a bone scan, and we found out that the cancer came back. Thank God I noticed the night before the transplant, because he would have gone in for transplant for no, a waste.
Yeah.
So we had a meeting with the doctor that next morning, and he told us that there was nothing more they could do for Michael. The only thing they could do was experimental drugs, but they weren't sure what the turnout would be. It would just, they couldn't give us, they said it wasn't, So they said we could either do that or take Michael home. So my husband and I thought about it, and my husband and I chose to take Michael home because you get to a point, are we being selfish, keeping him suffering and treatments and, the chemo, what they did to him and all the things that they would do to him. And we decided to take him home, keep him comfortable. And it was such an unbelievable decision for us.
Right.
It was really, really hard, but we had to put Michael's best interest. We had to think about him, and it was horrible. It was horrible. So we took him home, and on September 2nd, it was probably a week later, we went back to the hospital because he had a fever, and he just was it was awful. They put him on morphine, and at one point he was breathing really heavy, labored breathing. And then the nurse said, you could tell he was in pain. And I said, could you, up his morphine? And she said, oh, I can't do that. He'll stop breathing. And I got very upset with the nurse. And I said, he's going to stop breathing anyways. Could you please up his morphine? My son is in pain, and I don't want him in pain. But my husband and I were at the hospital with him, and I was holding him, and he stopped breathing at one point. And I got really upset. And then he just took a breath, and he started breathing again. And he looked up at me. My son, TJ, who was 7 at the time, was home with my mother-in-law, about a half an hour away. And he looked up at me and he said, TJ. And meanwhile, he hasn't talked at all. He's been really deep sleep. And I said, you want to see TJ? And he, nodded his head yes. So I said to my husband, call your mother and get him here quick. So he called his mother. His mother got TJ at the hospital, and I met TJ outside the door, and I said, TJ, Michael can hear you, but he can't talk to you. But you need to, I didn't want to tell him he was dying, but I didn't know what to say to him. But I said,
Right.
you need to go in and tell him you love him and whatever else you want to say to him. And so TJ went in, and he took his hand and he kissed him on the head, and he said, I love you, and then he walked out. He knew.
Yeah.
Even to this day, he told me, I knew he was dying. But to be 7 years old,
Yeah.
so he walked out of the room, and then I took Michael, and then a friend of mine whose also son had neuroblastoma, we met in the hospital because her son had neuroblastoma, and she came to the door. So I gave Michael to my mother-in-law. She put him in her lap, and I went out to talk to her for a second. Then I used the bathroom. I came back. She gave Michael back to me, and everybody was gone. And he stopped breathing in my lap. And I really think they have control.
Yeah.
I used to volunteer for hospice. And I really believe that they have control. And I think he waited until he and I had an incredible bond, Michael and I. And I really think he waited, first of all, until TJ got there. He wanted to see his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, I think he waited till it was just he and I in that room. And then I think he had full control. I truly believe that he had control.
I think so too.
Yeah. But after that, it was so hard for me. First, the doctor came in. We had an unbelievable Dr. Pellman. He was our oncologist. He was amazing. When Michael was breathing like that, he had come in. And I said to him, when is this going to stop? I can't. I mean, it was hours he was in my lap breathing like that. And it was just so heart-wrenching.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I can't handle this. I can't do this. And he said, Laurie, I have seen this go on for an hour. I've seen it go on for a month. And when he said that to me, I pleaded with God to take my son. I couldn't handle him breathing like that and suffering like that.
Yeah.
But after he passed, Dr. Pellman came and said that TJ, my other son, was in the next room, in the playroom. Children has playrooms for their kids. Throwing, whipping puzzles, whipping. He was so angry. So the doctor went in to calm him and to talk to him about it. It was really sad.
That is hard.
Yeah, poor kid. But to leave that hospital that night, to go through, I'll never forget walking through those doors without him in my arms was incredibly hard. Because I had never left that hospital without him in my arms. It was very, very hard. Very hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
But I always say, the different deaths, the sudden deaths, the overdose deaths, the murder, the car accident deaths, Michael, we had 9 months. I always knew in the back of my head we could lose him. He's going to pass away. But it's still, I always thought I could prepare myself. But you never can prepare yourself.
No, you can't.
Yeah, it's still just, I don't know. There's just no words.
Right.
And after he passed, it was the first week of school for TJ. And my husband went back to work. And I sat at that kitchen table and I thought, how does life just go on? Everybody just goes on about their business and people are just living their lives. Michael died. How can people be, I had such a hard time with that. How can people be going to the grocery store?
I know. I remember thinking the same thing. I remember just wanting to scream, don't you know the world has just ended? You don't know. Nobody knows. All these people at the grocery store and filling their cars up with gas and living normal life and going to work the world hasn't ended. I feel like the world ended,
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just don't know.
Yeah. My son died. Why are you at the store? Why? It's
just hard to wrap your head around.
It is. It is. But when he passed away, I wrote a journal. It's 4 pages long, and it's about the last 4 days of his life. But I'm glad I did, because when I read that, there's so much I forgot. And I take that. I haven't done it the last 2 years, but I used to take that and bring it to the cemetery. He's buried at the cemetery. I take it and I read it, because I don't ever, as hard as it is, I don't ever want to forget that. I don't want to forget even the horrible stuff. I don't want to forget it. So I read it. I bring it to the cemetery and I read it on his anniversary, his angelversary. Even though it's painful. But 2 months after he passed away, my son TJ started limping, and I took him to the emergency room, and the ER doctor looks at me, not knowing my history, and he says, let me take an x-ray of that, make sure there's not a tumor in it. And I just looked. And he was diagnosed with Legg-Perthes disease.
Okay.
So we went through, since he was 7 to 17, we went through brutal surgeries, brutal. And he became addicted to Percocets, because that was the 80s, and they had the the opiate crisis.
Right.
So that was awful. But I can gratefully and proudly say today he's sober 2 years. But when Michael passed, I got very, very I was a very compassionate person. I got very involved with the church. And then I had 2 more sons. In 1995, I had Tyler. And then in 1997, I had Logan. Logan was diagnosed with bipolar at 17. And we went through so much with Logan, with police at the house constantly, ambulances at the house constantly. He would have the manic episodes incredibly. I mean, it was scary, but he would self-medicate. He was also a drug addict. So when he was manic and then on top of that, take drugs, it was just awful. Logan and I were extremely close. He was the most caring, compassionate person. He would take drugs to escape his bipolar world. He never felt good enough for this world. But he had no idea how good of a person he was. I call him beautiful soul. He had so many walks, so many friends from all walks in his life. I used to go to his school, which he was not a student. He just wasn't. But his teachers used to tell me he was the student that would help all the kids that would be bullied. His teachers just loved him. They would tell me he was so caring and he always helped the kids that needed help. He had no problem just getting up and going over and helping some kid that was struggling with a math problem, or he had no problem helping the underdog. He was amazing like that. His teachers loved him. He was just amazing. People would tell me, like, when he passed away, they would say, he helped me. Like, when he passed away, we had a celebration of life for him, and these kids were coming up to me, and not kids, but, or young adults. Oh, we had a clubhouse that my husband made this clubhouse. Oh, I stayed at your clubhouse for nights because I didn't have a home. I was on the streets, and
You had no idea?
I stayed in your cellar for... he would do this for people. He always wanted to help someone. He would do anything. One day he asked me, he said, "Mom, what's your favorite book in the Bible?" And I said, "Matthew." I would say Matthew. I think that's my favorite book. And a couple of weeks later, he gives me this package that he had gotten in the mail, and he was so excited. He loved giving me gifts. And he said, "Mom, open this." He was so excited. And it was this beautifully illustrated book on Matthew. And in it, he wrote, "To my amazing, caring, unbelievably loving mother." And he wrote Logan. So I had that written on a sweatshirt that I have. They can embroider the same handwriting on the sweatshirt. And then another thing he did, we were at this fair, he and my grandson and we were at this fair, and I saw this pit bull blanket. And I fell in love with it. And I went to go buy it, and it was $80. And I said to Logan, "I am not spending $80 on that blanket." So my grandson and I were walking around. All of a sudden, he walked up to me with the blanket. He bought it for me. This is how he was. He was just amazing. He made huge things out of my birthday. He bought me an iPhone for my birthday right before he passed away. It was August of 23. But he was just an amazing, beautiful soul. That's what I used to say. His favorite animal was an elephant, which I didn't find out till after he passed away, and I went through his phone. I never knew that. And he loved takeout. They constantly were at our door with Domino's or Taco Bell or McDonald's.
Oh.
And he loved to write. He was he went to the mental hospital a lot, and he would write while he was there. And he loved to write. But I say he was so good with words, but I always say he had a broken wing. And I say, no more beautiful boy trying to make his way in this world. And there are moments in life that words don't reach. And that's what I think about him. we had so many conversations together in my car. We went to restaurants, and we were planning. He made me promise that we would get a tattoo together, because I don't have tattoos. I don't think anything wrong of them. But we never did. He passed away December of 2023. So his birthday is December 30th. He passed away on the 14th. So what I did is my older son, TJ, and I went to my son's tattoo artist, and I had his signature mixed with his ashes tattooed on my arm. So, yeah. And I went to a medium, and she told me that he was right there with me when I got that done.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
that
beautiful.
that was special. But, my whole life was consumed for, I want to say, 8 years of his mental illness and keeping him safe. I was constantly calling the ambulance. And now that he's gone, it's like, I don't know what to do with myself. I just don't know what to do, because he's not here. I'm not, like, I don't know what to do. I was so consumed with taking care of him and keeping him safe.
Was he living with you at the time?
He was living with us, and then he moved out, and within 2 months, he overdosed on fentanyl poisoning.
Oh.
So it was. But he had gotten a kitten, which he just was in love with this kitten. So I moved out. My husband and I, the first son that we lost, my husband was my rock. I wouldn't have never gotten through that. But this loss broke my husband and I. It just broke us. So I moved out. I couldn't be in that house. It was just awful. Or that town that Logan grew up in. So I moved in with my 2 adult sons, and it's just been wonderful to be with them. And we have Logan's cat, Luna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Who he just loved her. I went to buy her catnip once, and Logan said, "Mom, do not give my cat catnip. She cannot have catnip."
Why is that?
So fussy about her. But what happened with Logan is, one night my husband and I were sitting in the living room, and at 8:00 the phone rang, and it was my daughter-in-law, and she said, "Hunter," which is Logan's friend, "keeps calling Landon. Landon is my grandson, and he said he needs your number." And I said, "Okay, I'll call him." And I called, and he was hysterical. "Logan's dead. Logan's dead." And I just couldn't believe it. And I said, "What?" He said, "Logan's dead. Logan's dead." And so I was staying on the phone with him. He was hysterical. And my husband and I got in the car, and he was probably 15 minutes away, his apartment that he was at. And we drove to the apartment. I was sick. I was like about to throw up. I couldn't. We get to the apartment, and I couldn't go in. I got out. I was on the front lawn, and my husband ran in, and I think he was an investigator. He came out, and my husband came out. He was screaming, "Logan, Logan." My husband came out, and the investigator came out, and he handed us a card. They had already taken Logan like an hour away to a morgue, an hour away. So we got back in the car, and we went and picked up our son, Tyler, because I didn't want my husband driving. He was too upset, because he wanted to go see Logan. And we got back in the car, got Tyler. Tyler drove all the way down to the Cape, which is an hour away. And we got to this morgue, and the gates were closed, and my husband's banging and banging on the gate. And this woman came, and she wouldn't let us in. They were closed, and my husband's pleading with her, and my son was trying to get my husband back in the car. He just wanted to see him. Now, I was the opposite. I didn't want to see him. So we got back in the car, and when we got home, I just slept. I just kept taking hydroxine to sleep. I just slept for days. I didn't want to face reality. And my sons, Tyler and TJ, just took over. They handled things. They just took care of things. I have amazing sons. I just couldn't face reality. Now, exactly a week prior to Logan passing on, my sister passed away from breast cancer.
Really?
Yes, horrible. My older sister, who I was close to, and I spent days there with her. She passed away at home. And Logan and I were sitting in my front seat of my car, and he said, "Mom, what's going to happen with Debbie? Is she going to have a service?" And I said, "No, she doesn't want a service. She just wants to be cremated." And he said, "That's what I want, Mom. I don't want people looking at me in a casket. I don't want that. I don't want anything like that." He said, "I just want to be cremated." And thank God he said that. So my sons came up to me in my room and they said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Oh, there's no question. I talked to Logan. He told me he wants to be cremated. But my husband wanted to have a wake so that Logan, he wanted Logan to know he was loved, because Logan he just didn't think, I don't know, he thought so badly of himself." So that was kind of a, no, he can't, I spoke to him. If you heard what he said to me, it's very important that he be cremated. So we had him cremated. That's what he wanted. But we had a big celebration of life a few months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Logan hated his picture taken. Hated it. If I took a picture of him, he would say, "Give me that phone," and he would delete it. But when I went through his phone, when I tell you, there must have been 1,000 pictures of him that he took of himself. There was so many pictures, and he's gorgeous, And so I took them all. He took so many pictures of himself.
That's so funny.
He had so many pictures. So when I did the celebration of life, I did a t-shirt. Like, I knew that he didn't want his picture everywhere, but I did do pictures. I mean, I had to, but I did a t-shirt, and I had a quote that he had written. I found it on his phone, and his quote was, "Once you start paying more attention to yourself and what you do, and less about what other people and what they do, you'll be better off." So I put that on a t-shirt without his picture.
Yeah.
And I gave those away at the celebration of life.
But I think it's funny because right now you're wearing a t-shirt with this picture on it.
I know. He'd be so mad at me.
I think, though, I'm glad that you had the celebration of life anyway, because I don't think when people say that, they don't understand that the celebration of life, all that, it's not for them. It's not for the person who died. It's for the people who loved them. So when you say, like, "I don't want anything," well, okay, you don't want anything, but it's not for you. You're dead. It doesn't really matter what you want. It's what the other people who love you need. And it's so healing to have some sort of, acknowledgement. It's those kinds of services, rituals, whatever you want to call it, can be healing. And when you don't have that, because I've talked to a lot of people who didn't get that because of COVID, they weren't able to have anything. And, I've had many conversations with Gwen about this, about how she has had people do that now years later because they didn't have anything with COVID and they missed that. And, you do that 3, 4, 5 years later, it still can be a healing thing to do, because ultimately it's not about them. It's about the people remaining. So
Yeah, so true.
I know my dad has told my brother that he doesn't want anything. And, like, well, that's just not happening, Dad, because it's not about you at that point. You're dead. I've not told him that I'm going to not follow his wishes, but I'm not following his wishes. So fortunately, he doesn't listen to the podcast at all. His sister listens to the podcast, my Aunt Penny. She will laugh when she hears this. But that's just the way I feel. So Anyway, I'm very glad you did because I thought, oh no, did you not do anything for you? Because you need to do something. So I'm glad you did. You did.
No, we did. We had it last September and it was really nice. It was really nice. But it's weird because when I planned for it and I did most of the planning, it was so nice. And I was so obsessed with videos of him. And I love to listen to his voice and look at the pictures and all that. Since then, I can't look at pictures really. I can't listen to videos. I can't hear his voice without getting upset now. So I think I was just so consumed with getting that planned and done.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can't really listen to his voice, or I don't know, it's hard now. Where before I was fine. I was smiling listening to his voice and loving it and playing it over and over and without getting upset. And I think it was because I had to.
Yeah.
I had no choice. I had to get this done. But my two sons helped, and they are, I don't know, they're just amazing. I don't know what I'd do without them. And I have a dog that is 11. He's blind, and he's just my soul dog. I call him my soul dog.
Yeah.
Amazing. I do a lot to keep the boys' memory alive. Like when Michael first passed away, I did a lot, and I have his picture. There's one famous picture that I have everywhere. I mean, just everywhere. And I do like the memory quilt. I took a lot of Logan's t-shirts and sweatshirts and had a blanket made. I had, like sweatshirts, the shirt, the tattoo. And I was going to get the overdose license plate that they now have, but I ended up doing, his friends and I used to call him Logie. So now my license plate says Logie, which is awesome. I also have, I had a giraffe. His favorite was an elephant, but he also liked giraffes. I got a giraffe with his ashes in it, a stuffed animal with ashes. I sleep with that. And I've slept with his sweatshirt since he's passed away. I just feel closer with that,
Mm-hmm.
And jewelry. I had a memory bear made with Michael's clothing when he first passed away. I had a t-shirt made that says, "Grieving Mom, be patient." I have a bumper sticker that says, "Grieving Mom, be patient." I have decals on my car of Logan and Michael that says, "In memory of, Logan, in memory of Michael."
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of Phone of the Wind?
No,
I just started this. I just bought the phone too. It's an old-fashioned payphone.
Okay.
I got it, I think, off eBay. No, actually, Facebook Marketplace. It's a phone that people can go to. A guy in Japan in 2011 started this. They're all over the world. There's only 7 in Massachusetts. You can put it in parks, cemeteries, libraries, anywhere. People have put them in their front yard. You take a phone and you put it either on a tree, or some people actually buy the old payphone enclosures. I'm not going to do that.
Sure.
And you put it somewhere. I've sent out 3 letters of 2 parks that Logan and I used to frequently go to, and I put a letter in the cemetery to the cemetery board in where Michael's buried. I haven't had any response yet. You take a phone, not hooked up to anything, and people go to that phone and they talk to their loved ones.
Oh.
It's a place where they can go and they can talk to their loved ones, and there's a journal. You leave a journal there and they can journal. It's just such an awesome idea to me. There's a Facebook page, and if you look up Phone of the Wind, this man in Japan started it in 2011 when however you say that, the
tsunami. Mm-hmm.
Yes, when that hit, he lost his cousin. So he started the phone in his garden, and he has in Japan, they all use it now. And then that's when he started it, to talk to his cousin that he lost. Now they're all over the world, but you have to get permission. One of the women on Facebook, she put one without getting permission, and they took it away. So obviously you have to get permission wherever you put it, unless it's on your own property. But I think it's such a good idea.
Yeah, it's a beautiful idea. I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for telling me about it. That's great.
Yeah. It is. It's such a good idea.
Well, talk about your grief journey and what that's been like in general. So, obviously it started a long, long time ago.
It did. With Michael, I became very compassionate, just wanted to help people. I became very involved with the church. With Logan, I became very angry, isolated, angry, I haven't been back to church. I really don't go anywhere. I stay home. I have grief anxiety really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never experienced anxiety. I think the second time around just really has hit me. I'm a changed person.
Yeah.
Totally changed me. I just can't believe it's happened again.
Yeah.
My biggest fear was losing another child. In my hometown, there's a mom who's lost all 3 of her kids from drug abuse. And I don't know how she's surviving. I don't, it's been really hard. I don't socialize. I have a hard time going into public places. I walk in there and I don't know, something just hits me. Like, for example, my husband asked me to go into the bank and I said, I can't go into public places. I said, okay, I'll do it. I went into the bank and this gentleman was kind of giving me a hard time. He wouldn't do this money order for my husband. And I wanted to say to him, how dare you give me a hard time? I lost my son. That's the attitude I have. That's why I had the t-shirt made.
Yeah.
Grieving mom, patient. But I got so upset. I went out to my car and I just cried. I can't listen to the radio in my car. I listen to your podcast. The minute I get in my car, your podcast comes on because it just automatically comes on. And you know what? I should be crying at your podcast because it's all about losing kids, but I don't. I mean, sometimes I do, but I can't listen to the radio. I can't listen to Logan's songs. And it's just really hit me this time. And it's a year and a half, and I don't see it changing. I used to always say to Logan, if something happens to you, my life is over. And it hits me. Like when I've gone to a medium 8 times through the years since Michael passed. And she told me 2 times ago, she said, Logan says he doesn't want you living like this. And I know he doesn't,
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, I'm on a lot of online support groups, which is helping.
Uh-huh.
But it's really tough without him here. He and I were extremely close.
And I feel like, obviously when I lost Andy, I had not lost another child. That was my first child I lost. But I do have to say, when I was in college, my mom died. My mom got cancer. My mom died. Both of my parents had cancer when I was in high school. Like I had been through kind of a lot in those high school, college years. And I sort of thought I had done my bad thing. Like that was my thing. And certainly God would not let another really bad thing happen because I've been through a fair amount of bad stuff. And that's just not how it works. But I was thinking about you and your response this time as opposed to last time, and how I wonder if you had kind of thought losing Michael was your bad thing, that you weren't going to have that happen again. Like certainly that was your fear, but you think like God wouldn't do that to me again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that right? That's what I'm kind of gathering from you.
Yeah. Like that would not happen twice. There's no way that's going to happen.
Right. Right.
And then when it does, it just hits you.
Yeah. It just rocks you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I do feel like, I don't know if this is helpful to you at all, but I do feel like my absolute low point in my entire grief journey was at a year and a half. 100%.
Yeah.
I feel like that was my low. And after that, things started ever so slowly, ever so gradually getting better. But until that point, it didn't really at all. Even though I started the podcast at a year, so you would think maybe, and there were things that helped with that. Still, it's funny because now you just told me you're like about 100 and what'd you say, 147 episodes in or something like that? 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. 147 episodes in. So you're like at the halfway point, kind of almost, of where I am now, because you are 309. So, but when I listened back, when we did, maybe it was 250. I think when we did 250, I took several that I listened to and I had guests on that had been on in the past. And I listened to myself and I could hear there was one that was done at pretty much on the nose, that 18-month mark. And I could hear it. I could hear myself and how low I was then and how I just wasn't in a good place. I wasn't. That everything was at its worst point then. So I don't know. That's probably discouraging to people who maybe are not at that point yet. And hopefully maybe a little encouraging to you that maybe this will be as low as it gets for you. You know, it's hard to know. And it's so different for everyone. That's just me personally. And there are other people I think that can be hit their low maybe at 9 months, or maybe they hit their low at 4 years. I don't know. It just kind of depends on how you personally are. But for me, it was then. It was like all of a sudden I realized it was like the second half of the second year, and I knew it wasn't better. I mean, I knew I wasn't any better than where I had been, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I just listened to, it was his birthday, and it was heart-wrenching.
Oh, the birthday one, the 18th birthday one, right?
Yeah.
His 18th birthday one. That was a hard one. I cried the whole time. I remember Gwen doing that one.
Yeah.
Because we were supposed to do some like cool things in his memory that day. We were supposed to fly in an airplane, actually, because, you know, Andy wanted to be a pilot. And so there was a guy that I was in Bible study with his wife, and he's a pilot, and they were going to take us up in the air for his birthday, which I'd not been in a little small plane like that before. And we were really looking forward to it. And then he got sick. And it was supposed to be rescheduled, but it just never happened. So that was sad. I remember that day very specifically. Peter had a golf tournament, so Eric had the day off, and we walked that golf tournament. We were supposed to leave a little early and go do that flight, but we didn't. We just, you know, walked around this golf course, sort of watching Peter from a distance and just crying. And it was a horrible day. So hard. So hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Birthdays are hard.
Birthdays are hard. Yeah. He'd be 21 now. So it's hard. It's hard.
It is. Yeah.
So anyway, so we talked about obviously the differences, the really huge differences between mourning Michael and mourning Logan, you know, and how you felt around people and how people like feeling supported or not feeling supported. Maybe just elaborate on that a little bit more.
Well, with Michael too, I was getting out. I was, you know, with Logan, I never went back to work.
Okay.
I've worked with kids for over 40 years, you know, preschools, daycares, and I was working at a preschool for about 7 years. I never went back. And I was also working at a facility that you go into homes of the elderly and you clean their apartments and do little errands for them. I loved that job. Loved it. I loved my clients. I loved it. I couldn't go back. I still could never do that. I can't really, I have no tolerance for things. I have no patience. I'm just so different. I can't really interact with the outside world is what I'm going through. I do have a psychiatrist and a therapist, and they're wonderful. So I am working on things. It's so different. And it's two different losses too, not to compare losses, but
yeah,
like I said, Michael, you know, I had 9 months and it was a peaceful loss. I held him, you know, I always say I held you when you came into this world and I held you when you left this world. With Logan, and I always have said not to compare losses because they're all so heart-wrenching, no matter how they happen. I've always said if someone ever came to my door and said, your child's gone, to not have that goodbye is the worst thing in the world. To not be able to be there for Logan is so heart-wrenching, not to be able to say goodbye. He was at my house the night before asking for money, but not to be there when he passed is something I struggle with. Now, for both boys, which is really good to say, I have absolutely no guilt. My biggest goal in life is that my children know that they know that they know that their mother loves them beyond words. And every one of my children know that. They'll tell you, they know that their mother loves them. And Logan knew. He absolutely knew that it's unconditional love.
Yeah.
So I have absolutely no guilt when it comes to my children. So I'm not dealing with any guilt, although I do feel guilty that I wasn't there.
Yeah. Guilt and regret, I think, are a little bit different, right?
Yeah. So I do struggle with that, but on my groups, I'm in with David Kessler. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah, he's been on the podcast. You haven't listened to that one yet because it's much further along, but yeah.
Well, but he always says, no shouldas, wouldas, or couldas. And I do. I believe, you can't. But I do. I wish I was there. I wish I was. But, I did have the chance when Logan was transported to the funeral home. My husband and Tyler and TJ, my two sons, were able to go and visit with him and be with him in the room by themselves. And my husband cut his hair, took a piece of his hair. His hair was everything to him, Logan, everything to him. But they asked me, do you want to come? And I said no, because I didn't want, sometimes I wish I had, but there's a reason why I said no so quickly. I didn't want to always think of that, him lying there. That wasn't him, that wasn't, he had passed on, that was just his body. So I'm glad I didn't go, but some days I think, oh, if I could have just hugged him one last time, held his hand. My husband said he's so glad he did. People are different. I always say there's no right or wrong when it comes to grief and death. But for me, I don't think that would have been good for me.
Yeah. Andy was really particular about his hair too. And I was trying to explain to them how to do his hair. And they said, do you want to do it? And so I did his hair.
You did.
I did. But what's funny is I didn't want to touch him and have him feel cold. So I just touched his hair, but I got his hair just how he liked it. And it's funny, I'm looking over here because his hair gel is still sitting on his desk where I put it down after, because I was very careful to take it from the side. So his finger marks are still in it. As it comes in this little tub that and I always loved the smell of it. And he was shorter than me still. So I would smell his head and he would say, come smell me, Mom, smell my head. Because I love to smell his head with that hair product. It's not really gel because it's like I don't know what they call it, but
yeah.
Aww. Anyway, I'm sorry, it gets me all emotional when you talk about the hair because I hadn't thought about that in a while.
Oh, that's fine. Oh,
hadn't thought about doing his hair.
I know the things that you remember, huh?
I know.
See, boys, their hair is.
And I can hear him say, "Smell my head, Mom." Which is really funny too, because the kid had cradle cap until he was like 6 or 7 years old, and his head would always smell so bad from that stupid scale on his head. And he would have to come, and I'd try to massage it, I'd put stuff in it, wash it with special shampoo, and then comb it to try to comb all that scale out. So I think we had like a hair head thing, the two of us, right? Because for so many years, he would have to come and sit on my lap, and he'd be watching a baseball game or something like that, and I'd be just combing his head again and again and again to try to get that smelly scale out of his head. And then of course, when he well outgrew that and got to the getting his hair just so every time.
Oh,
Obviously just 14, so. And still short enough that I could smell his head. I remember saying to him, someday I won't be able to smell your head because you'll be taller than me, but it never happened.
you know what story amazes me is the story about him with the picture drawing the family.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's a crazy story.
It is.
Yeah, and for new listeners who might not have heard it, it goes back to when he was 7 and I was bringing him home from school and he was talking about this picture he drew. He drew this family picture. He was so proud of it. He wanted to show it to me. And I'm driving home and he's holding this big rolled up paper. And we get home and I open up the door to the van and he's not even unbuckled yet. And he's unrolled this picture to show me how proud he is of this picture. And there are 4 people in the family. And I was thinking to myself, dude, what we have 5 people in our family. Who did you leave out? You know what I'm thinking? Like, who's he upset with? Like, he loves his brother and sister and us. Like, who in the world would he leave out? And then I'm like, not sure if I should even point out the fact that he left somebody out because would he feel bad? But clearly he should know he only drew 4 people. And I said, Andy, why did you just draw 4 people in the family? There are 5 people in our family. And I said, who's not in the picture? I remember saying that specifically, who's not in the picture? And he said, I'm not in the picture, Mom. I'm not going to grow up all the way. I know.
That's amazing.
And it's so crazy because I so didn't want it to be true, but I so felt in that moment in my heart of hearts that it was going to be true. And as soon as he forgot about the picture, I threw it away because I didn't want it to be true.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone always asked, do you still have the picture? Like, no, heck no. Are you kidding me? I got rid of that picture so fast. As soon as he didn't want to mention it anymore because I just didn't want it to be true. So, yeah. But sometimes we don't understand these things, do we?
No.
He knew.
No.
At least then he knew.
Yeah. Yeah. They call them evolved souls. Have you ever heard that?
No. Huh.
But children who pass early are called evolved souls. That's what Mark Pitstick. Have you ever heard of Dr. Mark Pitstick on Soul Proof?
Mm-mm.
He calls them evolved souls.
Wow.
I had a thing that he said. Evolved souls don't need long earthly lives.
Yeah. Well, he didn't, and he was awfully excited to go to heaven. So it's so funny because he was just so fine with it all. I'm the one that's not fine with it all. Right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's the missing that's the hardest, I always say,
Yeah.
I really believe that Logan, some people say to me, you want him back? And I always, at first I was like, yes, I'd do anything to have him back. But the more I think of it, if it was the same life that he would lead, he suffered every single day. I believe more than I even know with the bipolar and the drug addiction. I feel that I would be selfish saying, yes, I'll take him back in a second, knowing how much he suffered. I believe that and especially going to medium, the medium and what she tells me, I believe he's better off where he is, even though I selfishly want him here with me. I believe that he's living the life and I will see him again. So for me to say, yes, I'll take him in a second, I think that's kind of selfish of me, knowing that he's happy where he is and he doesn't want to be here suffering. If I knew he could be here with me without that life that he led, then yes, I'll take him. But if I have to have him here with me and he has to live the life he lived, then I'm being selfish saying, yes, I'll take him. So it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. That is hard.
But I also wanted to share, I heard something, in one of my groups, when people say, how many children do you have? A woman had said, I think this is just so nice. She says, I have 4 sons, 2 living on earth and 2 dancing in heaven.
Oh,
I love that.
that is beautiful.
Isn't it?
That is beautiful. Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful way to put it because it's so hard to know how to answer that question, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Hmm. Hmm.
It really is.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and sharing your dancing sons. I will I will keep that in mind. I will keep that in my mind.
Oh, thank you so much, Marcy. Thank you for everything that you do, giving parents the opportunity to talk about our children, because as you know, it's just such an honor.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation. Or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.